bleeding in the vomiting. And spontaneous hematuria. What is hematuria? Hematuria is the presence of blood in urine. You will later get familiarized with these terms. Spontaneous means that is because of not because of any trauma. अचानक हो रही है without any cause. Hematuria हो रहा है, blood आ रहा है urine के अंदर. So these are the clinical features that usually present. These are the presenting clinical features of coagulation disorder and not the bleeding disorder. So, in case of bleeding disorder, the mucosal bleeds are common, skin bleeds are common, but in these patients, the deep bleeds are common, intra-abdominal, GIT bleeds, hematuria. History, you have to take the history of such patients. What was the birth history? Like I have already described, umbilical cord bleeding, history of circumcision, any prolonged bleeding at the time of tooth extraction, prolonged bleeding after traumas. In how to investigate these patients, whenever a patient comes with the history of bleeding, we have to order all the tests. We do the CBC to assess the platelet count, and then we do the PT and APTT to assess the coagulation function disorders. We cannot, these are all the clinical features, but we have to have the evidence of the function that is abnormal. If the platelet count is decreased, then we investigate that cause, and when the PT or APTT is prolonged, then we investigate it further to reach a final diagnosis. If a person is having a prolonged APTT, as I have written here, PT is normal because factor 8 was only being tested by APTT. So PT is supposed to be normal here. But APTT is prolonged. But there were many other factors, factor 8, factor 9, that were causing prolonged APTT. So at this level, we cannot make the diagnosis. That diagnosis is hemophilia A, but we have some clue in our hand that this is a coagulation disorder, not a bleeding disorder. And how will we investigate it further? That is a very long process. After a prolonged APTT, we do a number of tests on it, and final investigation is the specific factor assay for factor 8. That is our final test that gives us the final diagnosis. Now, what is hemophilia B? It is also known as Christmas disease. Why it is called Christmas disease? Because it was first discovered in a person whose name was Stephen Christmas in 1952. And what is hemophilia B? It is a deficiency of factor number 9. Okay? Hemophilia A is the deficiency of factor number 8, and hemophilia B, it is the deficiency of factor number 9. It is also X-linked recessive, so I am repeating it again and again. It is going to be presented in males, most likely. Less common than, it is a rare disorder. It is less common than hemophilia A, but the clinical features are going to be the same because coagulation factors that I have already described, they are going to present with deep bleeds, deep muscular bleeds, intra-abdominal bleeds, GIT bleeds. Similarly, APTT is going to be prolonged because factor 8 and 9 were those factors that were checked only by APTT. Here it is written, factor 9 and 8 are only checked by APTT. Likewise, factor 11 and factor 12. We are not going into the details of factor 11 and 12. But factor 8 and 9 we are doing, so APTT is only prolonged. We have a clue here, but the final diagnosis can only be made when we order the specific factor assay for factor number 9 or factor number 8, whatever we have in our mind. So I again repeat it. What we have done till here is thrombocytopenia. What is actually the difference between bleeding and coagulation disorder? What is thrombocytopenia? What are petechiae, purpura, and ecchymosis? And what is thrombocytopenia? What is the normal range of platelet count? And what are the clinical features of thrombocytopenia? What are the causes? Important causes. Just remember, there are viruses, drugs, toxins are very important causes. And what are hemophilia, coagulation disorders? What are the types of hemophilia? What is their pattern of inheritance? What are the clinical features? And what are the tests by which that help us in their identification? So this is very important. Okay. Now we get to our next topic, that is hazards of blood transfusion and their management. So first of all, what you must have idea about what is blood transfusion. Blood transfusion can be of whole blood. That is usually not given these days. It's obsolete now. There are very few rare indications for whole blood transfusion. We give blood in the form of components these days. This is very important to know. The take home message today is that you give blood in the form of components. That can the what are the components of blood? That are packed cells and platelets and plasma. Plasma, that is also known as FFPs, that is fresh frozen plasma. So we assess the condition of the patient and then we decide what kind of component that person or that patient needs. If that person needs packed cells, if that person is anemic because of any reason, so only he or she will be transfused with packed cells. If the person is having a very low platelet count, then you have to transfuse only the platelets, provided that a hemoglobin level is normal. And when you have to transfuse plasma, when there is coagulation factor deficiency or PT or APTT are prolonged because of a number of factors. So, in case of factor deficiency or some other issues with coagulation function, we get to transfuse them with fresh frozen plasma. So, this is important to know that what you actually mean by blood transfusion, and whole blood transfusion is not recommended these days, and worldwide it has been obsolete now for a number of years, and we give components in the form blood in the form of components, whatever the component that person is requiring. So we are going to discuss what are the hazards of blood transfusion or what reactions can occur in case of a transfusion. That the transfusion reactions are divided into two categories. One is acute, that are the immediate reactions, and one are the late or the delayed reactions. And what is the cutoff limit? How we decide the reaction is acute or late or delayed? The reactions that occur within the 24 hours of transfusions are the acute reactions or the immediate reactions, and the reactions that occur after the 24 hours of transfusion are categorized as late or the delayed reactions. And what are the acute reactions? These are very simple reactions, but you have to know their symptoms and a lot of things have to be checked before deciding what kind of the reaction the patient is suffering from. Non-immune, I have already described this term, immune and non-immune. Immune mediated reaction are those where whenever their antibodies are involved. When no antibodies are being involved, these are the non-immune reaction or the sepsis, that the blood or the platelets or the fresh frozen plasma that was given to the patient was already contaminated because of a number of reasons. That was contaminated by microbes, bacteria or anything. Usually they are contaminated by bacterial infection. So when the infected blood is transfused by mistake or it wasn't known that the blood is infected, that can lead to a severe septic kind of a reaction. And what are the immune reaction? These are the immediate reaction that usually start within half hour or 15 to half hour of the transfusion of the patient. Immune reactions are number one, that are the most important reactions and the most lethal reactions that can lead to death of the patient, and these are the most common reactions that usually happen worldwide. These are the acute hemolytic transfusion reactions. Acute hemolytic transfusion reactions occur when a mismatched blood transfusion by mistake is given to the patient, like a patient was of blood group O and by mistake the patient was transfused with blood group A.